If my mother hadn't died, I would have gone on believing the lie for the rest of my life. 2 months ago, I stood alone at her graveside as they lowered her casket into the ground. No siblings. No father. Just me and a handful of her old church friends. I thought that was the end of our story. I was wrong. 3 days after the funeral, a lawyer called me and asked me to come to his office. He said there were some documents I needed to see regarding my mother's estate. I assumed it would be simple. The small house, a few savings, maybe some old jewelry. Nothing complicated. I was wrong. When I sat down in the lawyer's office, he placed a thick folder in front of me and said words I will never forget. "Mrs. Brooks, your mother left behind a second family. A husband and 2 children you never knew about. And they are contesting the will." In that moment, my entire life cracked open. My mother, the woman who raised me alone, who told me my father died before I was born, who said we only had each other, had been living a double life for over 30 years. And now that secret was about to destroy everything I thought I knew about who I was. If this story resonates with you, please subscribe and turn on notifications. New true stories come out every day. And if you have your own story you've never told anyone, you're safe here. Leave a comment below. For my entire life, I believed I was an only child raised by a single mother. My mother, Margaret, was a quiet, hard-working woman. She worked as a seamstress and later in a small accounting office. She never spoke much about my father, only saying he died in an accident before I was born. I learned not to ask questions. We didn't have much, but we had each other. I grew up, got married, had my own son Lucas, and built a life. My mother was always there, quiet, steady, reliable. When my husband Thomas died 6 months ago, she was the one who sat with me every evening so I wouldn't be alone with my grief. She passed away peacefully 2 months ago. I thought that was the end of an era. I never imagined it was only the beginning of the truth. When the lawyer told me my mother had a second family, I felt the ground disappear beneath my feet. He explained that for over 30 years, my mother had been secretly married to another man and had 2 more children, a son named Michael and a daughter named Sarah, who were now in their 40s. They lived in a different town, only 40 minutes away. All those years while I thought we were alone in the world, she had another home, another husband, and 2 other children she saw regularly. She had split her life in half. And she never told me. The lawyer showed me documents, a second marriage certificate, birth certificates for my half-brother and half-sister, joint bank accounts, even property owned together. Everything was hidden in plain sight. My mother had lived 2 completely separate lives for decades. And now, after her death, the other family was contesting the will. They wanted the house I grew up in. They wanted the small savings she had left. They wanted everything. They claimed I was never really her only child. They claimed I was the secret. I sat in that lawyer's office feeling like my entire identity had been erased in a single afternoon. The woman I thought I knew better than anyone had been lying to me my whole life. And the worst part was that I was about to discover just how deep those lies went. I drove home from the lawyer's office in complete silence. The folder he had given me sat on the passenger seat like a bomb. I kept glancing at it, as if it might suddenly explode. When I finally pulled into my driveway, I sat in the car for almost 20 minutes, staring at the house I had grown up in, the house my mother had always told me was ours and ours alone. Now I wasn't sure what anything meant anymore. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table and opened the folder again. I read every document slowly, carefully, as if reading them a second time would make them less true. There were photos. My mother smiling next to a man I had never seen. My mother holding two small children at a birthday party. My mother on vacation at the beach with a family that wasn't mine. Each picture felt like a slap across the face. I found bank statements showing money transferred between two households for decades. I found school records for Michael and Sarah, my half-brother and half-sister. I found a second marriage certificate dated only 2 years after I was born. My mother had started her second life while I was still a toddler. The next morning I did something I never thought I would do. I drove to the address listed for the other family. I parked across the street and sat there for hours, watching the pale blue house with the white shutters. A woman in her 40s came out to water the flowers. She looked a little like me around the eyes. I felt sick. That evening, the other family's lawyer called me again. He was polite but firm. They wanted to meet. They wanted to discuss a fair division of my mother's assets. They said I had no right to keep everything when I had only been one part of her life. I hung up without answering. For the first time since my mother died, I wasn't grieving her anymore. I was angry. I was angry that she had lied to me for 62 years. I was angry that she had built another family while I thought I was all she had. I was angry that even in death she had left me with a war I never asked for. But the worst anger was the one I felt toward myself, for never suspecting anything. For believing every story she told me. For thinking I was enough. The next few days became a blur of phone calls, documents, and sleepless nights. I hired my own lawyer. I started digging through old boxes in the attic. Every new piece of paper I found felt like another piece of my identity being ripped away. And somewhere in the middle of all that pain, a quiet, cold determination began to grow inside me. I wasn't going to let them take what my mother had left me. I wasn't going to let them erase the life I had lived. And I sure as hell wasn't going to let them pretend I was the secret. I didn't sleep for 3 nights after that phone call from the other family's lawyer. On the 4th morning, I made a decision. I drove to the pale blue house with the white shutters. I didn't call ahead. I didn't warn them. I simply parked in front, walked up the path, and rang the doorbell. The woman who opened the door looked like a slightly older version of me. Same eyes. Same shape of the mouth. She froze when she saw me. "You're Eleanor," she said quietly. I nodded. She stepped aside without another word and let me in. Inside the house smelled like fresh coffee and lavender. Family photos covered the walls, photos of my mother smiling with people I had never met. My mother holding a baby. My mother at graduations. My mother laughing at a barbecue with a man who was not my father. A man in his late 60s walked into the living room. He stopped when he saw me. "Michael and Sarah will be here soon," the woman said softly. "They wanted to meet you." I didn't sit down. I stood in the middle of their living room and looked at the man who had been married to my mother for 32 years. "You knew about me the whole time?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "Yes. And you never once thought I deserved to know the truth?" He looked down at the floor. "Margaret said it was better this way. She said you had your own life. She didn't want to complicate things." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Complicate things," I repeated. That's what I was to her. A complication. The front door opened. A man and a woman in their 40s walked in. my half-brother and half-sister. They looked at me with a mixture of curiosity and discomfort. Sarah spoke first. "We're sorry you had to find out like this." I looked at all three of them, the family my mother chose to keep secret. Then I said the words I had been practicing in my head for days. "I'm not here to make peace. I'm here to tell you that I will fight you in court for every single thing my mother left me. The house. The savings. Everything. I spent 62 years believing I was her only child. I took care of her when she was sick. I held her hand when she died. And you three, you had her in secret while I thought I was all she had." Michael stepped forward. "We didn't ask for this either," he said. "Maybe not," I replied. "But you're asking for my house now. And you're not getting it." The silence in the room was heavy. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "We just wanted to know our sister," she whispered. I looked at her for a long moment. "You had 30 years to know me," I said. "You chose not to." I turned and walked toward the door. Before I left, I looked back at them one last time. "My mother lied to both of us," I said. "But I'm not going to let her lie define the rest of my life." I closed the door behind me and didn't look back. That was the moment I stopped being the daughter who was kept in the dark. I became the woman who turned on the light. The meeting with my mother's secret family ended the moment I walked out of that house. I didn't slam the door. I didn't raise my voice. I simply left them standing in their living room, surrounded by the photos of the life they had shared with my mother while I had been kept in the dark. 2 days later, my lawyer filed a formal objection to their claim on the will. The battle was officially on. Over the next few weeks, the truth kept unfolding like a slow, painful reveal. Bank records showed that my mother had been sending money to the other family for decades. She had even helped pay for Michael's college and Sarah's wedding, things she had always told me she couldn't afford when I needed help. Every new document felt like another betrayal. But I didn't break. Instead, I did something I had never done before. I fought for myself. I gathered every letter, every photo, every bank statement. I prepared a detailed timeline showing how my mother had deliberately hidden her second life from me. My lawyer said the case was strong. The will was clear. My mother had left the house and her savings to me specifically. The other family eventually offered a settlement. They wanted to split everything 3 ways. I refused. I told my lawyer one sentence. I don't want their peace. I want what my mother actually chose to give me. The case never went to full trial. They withdrew their claim 2 weeks before the hearing. The house, the savings, and everything my mother had left me remained mine. When the lawyer called to tell me it was over, I sat on the porch swing where my mother and I used to drink tea and cried for the last time. Not because I had one, but because I finally understood that the woman I loved had lived 2 lives, and I had only been allowed to see one of them. The house is quiet now. I walk through the rooms that used to feel like home, and I see them differently. The photos on the walls are still there, but I've added new ones, pictures of me and Lucas when he was little, pictures of my mother and me on the porch, pictures of the life I actually lived. I kept the house. I didn't sell it. I didn't run away from it. I stayed. Some nights I sit in my mother's old chair and talk to her out loud. Not with anger anymore, but with a strange kind of understanding. I tell her I forgive her for the lie, even if I'll never fully understand why she told it. I've started seeing a therapist. Not because I'm broken, but because I want to make sure I never again accept a half-truth as the whole story. Lucas still calls sometimes. I answer when I feel ready. We're not close the way we used to be, but we're honest now. That's something. As for the other family, Michael and Sarah, I haven't spoken to them since that day in their living room. Maybe one day I will. Maybe I won't. Right now, I'm choosing to focus on the life I have, not the one that was hidden from me. I am 62 years old. I am no longer the daughter who was kept in the dark. I am the woman who turned on the light. And for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm finally living the whole story, not just the part someone else allowed me to see. Life did not return to what it was before. It settled into something quieter, but also something truer. I am still 62 years old. I still live in the house I grew up in. I still drink my tea on the porch swing every morning. But I no longer walk through these rooms carrying the weight of a lie I didn't even know existed. I learned that the people we love most can still hide entire lives from us. And that discovery doesn't always break you, sometimes it frees you. For 62 years, I believed I was my mother's only child. I believed I was enough. When I found out I wasn't the only one, it hurt more than I can describe. But that pain eventually taught me something important. You cannot build your identity on someone else's secrets. You cannot live your whole life as half a story. I kept the house. I kept the memories that belonged to me. And I let go of the ones that never did. I no longer feel the need to understand why my mother lived two lives. Some truths are not meant to be fully understood, only accepted. What I do understand now is this. Family is not only blood. Family is also the truth you choose to live by. I am choosing truth. I am choosing to stop carrying the weight of other people's lies. And I am choosing to forgive my mother, not because she deserved it, but because I deserve peace. Some chapters end with answers. Mine ended with questions I will never fully resolve. And that is okay. This was my true story. If you're watching right now and you've ever discovered that the life you thought you knew was built on secrets, if you've ever felt like you were only half of someone's story, if you're carrying pain from someone who was supposed to love you unconditionally, you are not alone. Leave a comment below and tell me, what truth have you discovered that changed everything? If this story moved you, please subscribe and turn on notifications. New true stories come out every single day. You never know which one might be the story you needed to hear. Thank you for listening to my truth. I'm Eleanor, and this is her true story.